We're garden sitting for my friend, and they grew some really great cabbages in their garden this spring. So she said we could take some home. They had, a couple of them had quite a bit of damage from worms. But the thing is, if you just go a little bit further, you get to the point inside where the whole cabbage is clean and there's no more wormholes. And everything inside is totally fine. There's no reason to not use it just because, like I say, the outside looked pretty bad. But inside there is a lot of great cabbage. So I'm gonna use these cabbages today and make homemade sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is one of those things that I had never even tried before becoming a gardener. And just, I feel like as you get interested in growing your own food and eating your own food and preserving your own food, that you end up trying some of these things that you otherwise maybe would never have tried. And turns out my family and I really like sauerkraut pretty well. So I always make at least a small batch of it every year. I like to use Alton Brown's recipe. Sometime I feel like I can get to the point where I won't necessarily need a recipe, but as of right now I still use a recipe. And his calls for 5 pounds of cabbage, which this is about 6.5 pounds of cabbage, but I'm gonna be taking the core out and peeling off a couple more leaves. I have another cabbage I might grab if I feel like I need a little bit more, but so what I do is I measure out my salt and juniper berries and caraway seed, and then I start chopping my cabbage and putting it in a bowl.
Putting this on your YouTube channel?
Yep.
Looks good.
The salt you want to use for making sauerkraut needs to be a salt that doesn't have additives in it. So I usually use this canning and pickling salt. And I like to just chop my cabbage fine. And as I chop it, I add it to the bowl, and I just sprinkle on my salt and my seasonings. And there's some kind of tradition of pounding your cabbage leaves to release the juices, because what we're gonna do is we're just adding salt to this. And the salt is gonna draw out the liquid from the cabbage, and that is the liquid that this cabbage is going to ferment in. We're not gonna be adding any extra liquid to this. The only reason you might need to add some extra liquid might be if you have an older cabbage that has gotten dried out, but I know that this cabbage is fresh. I just picked it yesterday, so it should have plenty of moisture in it that it will cover itself in its own liquid from the salt. So now that I have 1/3 of the cabbage in there, I'm just gonna eyeball 1/3 of the salt and sprinkle it over this. And it's a pretty heavy salting. That is part of what is helping to preserve the cabbage so that it doesn't go bad. Then I'll take 1/3 of these juniper berries and caraway seeds and start my next layer. All right, I'm done chopping cabbage. I Got the second cabbage into this bowl. And like I said, I don't pound my cabbage at all to get the water out. The water comes out all by itself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cover these with a tea towel and put them in the corner of my kitchen in a cool spot. The water is already starting to pull out of this cabbage from being salted.
Sauerkraut.
So that's been sitting for 15 minutes and it already has that much water pulled out. I'm going to check on these at bedtime tonight, and I think at that time there will be enough water pulled out. I will probably be able to condense the two of these into the one big bowl, and it just shrinks up more and more, and then I have some half-gallon jars that I'll transfer them to as soon as they are covered in their water. There are an amazing number of products available for fermenting, and a lot of different products that you can use with mason jars, with regular or wide mouth mason jars. I've seen a couple that I've been interested in trying, but so far we just have never purchased anything. And really, everything is just helping out the process, but the process can still happen without those special products. We like to eat our sauerkraut anytime we're having like bratwurst. We'll eat it. It's good accompanying meats and other things. Sometimes I tell my kids, oh, it's cabbage pickles, because it's just a different way of thinking about it, that it's another pickled vegetable that you can eat kind of as a little side dressing to any other thing that you're doing. Jeremy likes Reuben sandwiches. He'll put them on Reuben sandwiches, and there's just a lot of ways to enjoy sauerkraut. So I condensed these into 1/2 gallon and a quart. What I have done is I have weighted down the cabbage with jars of water. You want to keep the cabbage submerged under the fluid, otherwise it can go moldy or start to darken. And at any point, if you have weird kind of scum around the top, you can just scoop that off. Bubbling, like you'll think, oh, I need to get the air bubbles out, but really it's the lactofermentation is going to create more bubbles in here, and so the bubbles will always just be coming out the top. I'm gonna actually cover this with a cheesecloth. So the cheesecloth will keep any like bugs or flies out of it. But this is day 3 at this point, and I'm gonna leave it in a corner of my kitchen for probably 2 weeks. It takes a longer amount of time if it is cooler in your house, and it takes a shorter amount of time if it's really warm. Some people test it along the way and whenever they like the flavor, because the longer that you leave it, the longer that the lactobacillica work on it, and it will get sour, more and more sour, the longer it has fermented. So you can taste it along the way and decide how you like it, and you put it in the fridge, and you can leave it in the back of your fridge for at least 6 months, Alton Brown says. But I think traditionally people had it in their root cellar the whole year till the next cabbage season came around, sauerkraut season. So anyways, we're excited, and in a couple weeks we'll have some more fresh sauerkraut, and we'll enjoy it with our sober Oktoberfest.